Castology.
Welcome to Castology, the podcast where we review podcasts that are going to be especially niche.
Today, it's our niche off.
Oh, it is.
We've been hyping this
about
for
it.
years.
Yeah.
We've bitched about it.
We've fucked up multiple times.
We?
I think of us as a
I
collective
think
unit,
one
so.
person has bitched about it. No, maybe two people have bitched about it, and one
person has fucked up
a
multiple
number of
times. One person, see, you just blew your load too early.
We
really?
won't.
You put it too early.
You know what? We'll get it. Yeah, we'll get it all out, and then we can, Anyway, I'm one of your hosts, Nick Bleak. Across me is,
Zane C. Weber.
and to my left is
Liz Best.
We're here to review some podcasts, especially niche this
Especially
week.
niche.
is
That's
our
our
theme.
theme.
That's
so
right.
Nick and I were a bit crafty this week, and we decided that Zane went, you know what? I've got confidence in mine.
I am so super confident
I'm
in
going to
mine.
put it up on the sheets that we have, the
Yep.
spreadsheet that we have, and it's just going to sit there mocking you.
And it's been there for about a year now, I think.
Oh, I don't think it's been there for that long.
it's been there for a while.
A
It
few
was
months.
definitely during the first part of lockdown that I found this podcast.
Right.
It might not have been on the spreadsheet immediately.
Yeah,
but
well, I think it's been on the spreadsheet for about 6 months,
Yeah.
but I just was like, no, you know what? And so Nick and I decided not to put ours on the spreadsheet. And now we're quietly shitting ourselves that we're going to recommend the same niche podcast. So the rules are that if we recommend the same niche podcast, we automatically lose to Zane.
Yep, and that is a completely fair.
I've got a really sneaky suspicion based on the kind of really shitty cryptic clues we were giving each other beforehand. I just felt in my waters that our podcast might be similar, but not the same. Dun, dun, dun.
But-
Which automatically makes them like
Less
kind of
niche.
less niche.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
they're very similar to each other.
Or does it mean they're similar to each other, but even on a smaller level? Like you can break this category down even fucking smaller.
Very true, very true. But I think, look, Zane, yours is the one that's on the spreadsheet, so we start with
And
your
it's not,
recommendation.
yes, and it's not just the judging category is not just how niche is it, but also is it good?
Yeah.
Because if it's
Yep.
there were a lot of podcasts that I came up with that were niche and shit.
Yeah, I mean, there was that one that popped up on an episode that we recorded earlier, which was Siri listening to me, and then it sent me some demonic fucking Spotify podcast. Which
And
I
look,
thought
there
about
was one
putting in.
podcast that I had in contention for a little while because the theory of it sounded great, and it was called E1, and it was just the first episodes of podcasts that only ever released one episode.
Ooh, that's a good
And
one.
it wasn't though.
Oh, okay.
It was such difficult listening because
Yeah.
when people only release one episode,
They haven't
it's
learned
for
their
a
lesson.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like fascinating topic, right? But I couldn't pick it because I didn't believe in the content.
Yeah. Well, against type this week, I've chosen a sports podcast called Chestnut Chats.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what sport, you say, is Chestnut? Is that is it horses? Is it horses? Is perhaps there a team, a sports team called the Chestnuts that this is a podcast about?
Isn't it the game where you're with the...
It's Conkers.
Yeah.
So this is the official podcast
Official.
of the Conker Cup, which is a I want to say like tri-state area in the UK competition of conkers. Now,
What the fuck are conkers?
so chestnuts, I will tell you what conkers are.
Yeah,
And this
see,
is-
want to load it on
I
Chestnut Chat?
only know this because of a lot of the books that I read as children. They would have children playing conkers.
Conkers.
Yeah.
So what a conker is a chestnut with a hole drilled in it, placed on a shoelace that is then knotted to prevent it from falling off.
Okay.
You then hang that 20 centimeters from your hand, and then another person hangs their chestnut on a shoelace 20 centimeters from the top of their hand, and you take turns trying to smash the other person's chestnut. First chestnut to break off the shoelace loses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very popular children's game.
It's a very popular children's game, but this is the professional league of conkers. And they produced a 6-episode season of Chestnut Chats. Now, you might say, Zane, that's pretty niche. But this isn't a podcast about conkers. This is a podcast that parodies the kind of people that you find in a conkers competition and makes a 6-episode season of a podcast about those kinds of people that aren't real. As far as my research indicates.
I feel like that makes it less niche if it's made up.
If it's because it's a parody.
Feels like a cheat.
No, but the Conker Cup is real.
No, but it feels like a
The
cheat
host
because
is real and involved with there. But they haven't used real names of the people of their guests. They have guests and they have.
But is it
news.
fiction?
Yeah.
I feel like that's cheating.
No, but you brought a comedy podcast about laundry.
But it was literally about laundry.
Yeah, but everyone does. This is literally about conkers. It's just.
But it was people's real life stories with laundry.
Look, we'll let people decide whether this is niche, but this is.
It's a nice edge, Zane.
This is so this is a comedy podcast about conkers. So yeah, it's honestly, and it's very well produced, like superb production. You cannot tell that this is, if you could definitely take this seriously, to the point that when I went back to like familiarize myself with this stuff again, I still second guess, like, is this legit? And then I started Googling again, trying to find these people, trying to find any of the events that they're talking about. I'm like, oh, I don't know. So I'm 80%
I feel like
sure.
if you fictionalize it, it makes it less niche.
Look, the thing that makes me think that it is, and not to spoil, but I'm looking at like the episode titles, and there's two people that are interviewed called Keith McQuiff and Derek Shedturd.
Well, they obviously don't use real names, but some of the names of the people that are involved in the contest are ridiculous because it's regional Britain. And the website for this thing is ridiculous. Like they have, like, what can you use instead of conkers? They have
website.
like conker versus boiled egg, conker versus pickled onion. Why conkers are
I feel like it
conkers.
would be more niche if it was real.
Well, all of it except
The content.
the very niche comedy. Like that's the thing. Like it's kind of like, this is weird. Not this is.
I'll
funny.
reserve my judgment till I've heard
please.
it.
I encourage you to. But yeah, so this is Chestnut Chats, the podcast about.
It is very niche, but I feel like it's somehow cheating.
I feel like this is very dependent on the content of the actual show.
I just feel like if you make it up, you could be niche as fuck, and it's like fine.
Please listen to it. I 100% stand by this.
Okay.
This is a masterpiece of comedic parody. And I, personally, am not a fan of parody.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is very true.
So yeah, that's my entrance into the niche off the Chestnut Chats.
All right, Liz.
Oh, you're going to make me go.
Yeah,
are
it's
you?
my show.
Okay. So I'm just going to read their intro, see if you can think of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
From literature to carpentry, from accounting to space travel, the wood-cased pencil and its ancestors have undeniably been at the center of creation and innovation for centuries. My podcast is called the Erasable Podcast, and it's about pencils.
Everyone has a pencil.
Just pencils. Yes, but how often can you talk about the niche that is pencils? Well, so far, my friend, 172 episodes worth.
That is a lot of pencil talk.
I know. That is how niche they get when talking about the pencils. So
I
this
just want to clarify. Nick, yes or no, is this the same podcast that you brought?
It isn't.
Damn it.
Okay.
I was really hoping. That would have been.
I was legitimately
chef's kiss.
sweating until you started. Like, I was like, oh, thank fucking Christ.
So it's hosted by 3 veteran pencil bloggers, they call themselves. Johnny Gamba, Tim Wassam, and Andy Weffley. I can't remember. Anyway, it's a bi-weekly podcast and it's about the joys of wooden pencils. They get different guests on to talk about pencils. Like there's one called Store-Bought Pencils. There's one called Give Us Your Weird, which is about weird and interesting pencils. The host of a podcast, actually I won't say that just in case. We'll wait till Nick has revealed what his podcast is. But yes, there are so far 172 episodes talking about pencils. Now, some of these episodes they're usually over an hour talking about pencils, but I rate it. I don't think it's the greatest podcast I've ever heard because I don't love pencils that much.
Well, but if we're talking about the quality of the podcast.
Quality-wise, I enjoy it. Yes,
Okay.
Quality-wise, it's quite good and amusing how much you can get out of the humble wooden pencil.
Yeah. Nick?
Cool. Yeah, right. Jeez. So my recommendation is a podcast called Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's.
I love it.
And there are 229 episodes.
What?
And the show is literally about investigating about whatever happened to pizza at McDonald's.
Now, Nick, one might ask the question: how often do they actually talk about the pizza that was at McDonald's in these episodes?
It's like an investigative journalism thing. Like it's not
So the
200
episodes-
episodes of
229 episodes.
How long are these episodes?
So it varies from like 3 minutes. So he'll call up some McDonald's and ask if they sell pizza.
Right.
And they'll hang up on him. They'll tell him to Google it. And then it gets a little bit deeper. And then the episodes start expanding to like 10 minutes. And then the max is about 15 minutes. It is very quick.
I am so excited. I was really
it's very
worried
funny.
that you were going to bring the Pen Addict podcast because that was another one that I considered. And there are several times that someone from the Pen Addict guests on the Erasable podcast to talk about pencils.
I'll be honest, it was one of the topics I did look up being like, what's just the most fucking obscure thing? But
Well,
I was like,
I
that's
used to
too
just
easy.
think
That's
of
too easy.
what's the obscure thing. I was like podcasts about dust, podcasts about lint, podcasts about belly buttons.
'Cause
Like,
you might hit on it like containers.
yeah.
Which
No.
inspired this whole thing, you know?
No, that was a miss.
That was an absolute hit,
Mm.
in my opinion. So yes, whatever happened to pizza at McDonald's.
That's
So podcast art is incredible.
I'm glad you fucked up with all of the other niche
I
podcasts
will
and
say
put them too early.
it is better than the other podcasts that you have.
Like mountain climbing or what the
Yeah.
fuck else.
This one I had to really think about the question.
Yeah.
Like not even it was like, what do I ask?
This is a very niche podcast too. I love it. I love it.
It's I'm going to say I'm impressed with all of our entries.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
because
I'll be
here's
honest.
this. So like we've got comedy parody, whatever the fuck yours is.
Conkers.
Comedy conkers. We've got fucking investigative journalism, and we've got super informative about pencils and people talking.
I love that you're like investigative journalism.
No, I love it. Like you've actually got an investigative piece, and then you've got a chatty podcast. Like they're three
Yeah.
very varied podcasts.
Yeah, good.
I'm very excited to listen to both of those.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I'm not sure that you are.
Oh, I don't. Yeah,
I think you're
honestly?
least looking forward to mine.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Chestnut chat on a little bit. That one's that's tough. Jesus Christ.
I guarantee that both of you will be tickled pink by this podcast.
Doesn't mean it'll win a niche off.
It doesn't. No,
Who
it
knows?
absolutely doesn't. But I think both of you will appreciate this podcast for what it is.
So the reason why I picked my pencil podcast though is because how much can you get of one topic? So like it goes so niche into the world of an already niche and outdated object because each episode is over an hour long and there's 172 of them about pencils and chatting about pencils and the history.
229 about Peter
But look,
McDonald's.
literature, carpentry, accounting, space travel, all of these historical pencil
See, all
events.
of those, that's
100%.
really broad. Like I just got conkers.
Yeah, but
It's like
mine's
it's all it's conkers and shoelaces and chestnuts.
yeah, but mine's the nichest object in the broadest context.
Yeah, mine's the nichest of the niche.
And it's
The nichest-
fake. It's fiction.
Well,
it's
the podcast
cheating.
exists. It is about the Conker Cup.
It's cheating.
Nick, you need to rein this in.
I
I
just
think.
hope you guys really enjoy mine. Anyway, we're going to move on to our recommendations.
Reviews.
To our reviews of the recommendations that we made last fortnight. And I want to start with Zane's.
I recommended Excuse Me, That's Illegal, which is a podcast about kind of dumb crime or dumb people committing crime that is not hardcore. It, in fact, is quite softcore. What did you think?
So this was in my podcast queue about 6 months ago. And I had it on my list to possibly recommend it.
Oh, no.
And after listening to 5 episodes, I chose not to.
5 episodes is a long run, though.
Because the concept, I kept wanting to love it because the concept intrigues me a lot. But some of the comments that the host made
He's very bro-y.
are a bit dude bro off colour. And it happened a few too many times for me to the point where I was like, even though I adore this concept, I will be red for filth if I put it on my list.
Okay. Well,
So-
I'm happy to accept that filth
yeah,
for you.
it's literally that the content when he actually talks about the crimes is hilarious, and I love it. And I even kind of like his, silly little intro song that they have.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the occasional strange dude broy comment at the start just kind of turned me off a bit.
Yeah.
How good is the concept though? Oh, and
problem,
the title.
Yeah, the problem is that the actual the core idea of it is great. And don't get me wrong, Leroy's sure he's a perfectly normal person. He's a perfectly
This podcast, he's weird.
He's a perfectly fine person. This was one. It just wasn't funny. None of the jokes hit for me. The tone is set quite early on with the theme song, which is great. I actually really enjoyed it. And then it's like the content warning, and it's like may cause anal leakage, and I was like, that's not funny. That's just it's not funny. At all.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was funny, and then it happens over and over, and I was like, no, this is terrible. For me, I don't mind his delivery of some of the stuff. I actually don't mind it, but yeah, it's not funny, and I know that the purpose of it isn't so much to be funny, but more to be like to go. These are stupid things to do.
Why put the things in if they're not funny?
I don't know. It's a kind of a weird tonal
every
imbalance.
now and then there was a couple of off-color things that I just went, I just don't.
Yeah.
I really like the concept, and I really like.
See,
the
that's
title.
the thing. Like, I acknowledge that this is exactly what it is, and I thought that you would get past it because, like, again, like it was kind of like, oh yeah,
Look, and
okay.
maybe I would have had it come to me purely through your recommendation, and I would have
Right,
listened to
yeah.
it. But because I was judging it on a would I recommend this,
Fair, yeah.
that's where I came at it from, and that's where I chose not to put it on my list. So then when I saw it pop up on yours, I was like, homework done. But I did go back and listen to a couple of extra episodes later on just to see if he'd improved. And like the delivery's fine. Some of the stories are funny, but yeah, the anal leakage and some of the dude bro-ish stuff was just not for me.
Just none of it really hit for me personally. And look, it is a light show. It doesn't get, well, from the episodes I listened to at least, it doesn't get particularly dark. It's just some stupid crime.
I'd
Which is
really
the
like
idea
it
of it,
if there was a co-host.
I think so too.
That'd help, I think, rein things in a little bit.
And then they could riff off each other. And then oh no, that sounds really mean. I was gonna and then
But then it's not
it takes
not
the
just
pressure
one
off.
person.
It takes the pressure off
Yeah.
of Leroy to be funny.
But-
No,
but-
that's horrible.
No, but that's exactly
it's-
right. So if one person's standing on the stage and talking at you, trying to be funny, and you start cringing,
yeah.
the chances that you're going to laugh them start diminishing very quickly. And like that, he has no way to know that his jokes aren't landing, so he's just going to keep on doing what he's doing.
And this is the thing. There's no filter. But I do want to say that I really appreciate what he's doing, because doing solo podcasts is really tough. It's really, really tough. It's hard. And you have an excellent, excellent concept. So I would consider retooling, perhaps.
Yeah.
Like the concept is great. Your title is great. Your cover art's great. Just consider retooling your concept, maybe. Or tell us to go fuck ourselves and keep doing what you're doing.
Call us out on the show.
Oh my God, if you shout me out on your show, I would.
This is a recommend.
Yes.
I will sell out. Making that clear to anyone who's listening.
We are dirty, dirty sellouts, and we are not ashamed of it.
We'll do it. Liz.
Okay, so last week I recommended Hit Job, which was basically like a sitcom about a corporation that sells hit people's services with the thinly veiled jabs at a lot of different intellectual property villains. What did we think?
The sound design in this is something else. And I mean that in a good way, but I also kind of mean it in a little bit of a bad way, because I don't know if it was me or if I was listening too loud, but sometimes there are moments that kind of happen that are so fucking loud, like the pterodactyl loud. I'm pointing at Zane.
That's Zane's pterodactyl, not pterodactyl in the podcast.
But the sound design itself and the actual performances are terrific. And I think that the thing that I really, really like about this show, and I actually wrote it, it's the thing that brings it all together, is that Kilco, the company they work for, really does feel like a lived-in environment that these characters inhabit, and each character has its own, and like you said, borrowed or parodied personalities that all really fit within the realm of this quite, I guess, absurdist story. I think Pete Davidson is not funny. I don't think much of him, but everyone's performance here is bang on.
Yeah, well, because Gio wasn't a particularly funny character though,
No.
so it was fine.
Yeah.
Did you love? I loved Max Greenfield as the Kilco, Schmidt as the Kilco rules guy.
But
Love that guy.
But for me, I think the thing that I think this is probably more of a wider look at podcasts. Things like this where they are heavily produced and where it does lend itself more to a visual medium. The thing that I think bothered me probably less about the show and more just about the wider scope of these limited series and bigger stories is that they feel so like the budgets are so huge and the sound design is so huge. And it kind of feels like some of these shows, and I don't think Hit Jobs, it's an issue for Hit Job. I think just in the wider scheme, some of these shows feels like they're kind of losing their heart a little bit.
It does feel a little bit like podcast dick swinging sometimes
A
with
li-
how
yeah,
much
yeah.
how far they try to push the soundscapey.
Yeah, and
Let's cast stars element.
And for me, it's just kind of like sometimes I think Knife Point Horror is a really good example comparatively to with our horror episode where the minimalism of that show is what makes it stand out, whereas the other two have impeccable sound design or terrific sound design or however you want to describe it. But it does really take a bit of the balance out of the story.
That episode was very, very clear that the scales were weighted in the favour of the smaller production for
Yeah.
all our recommendations.
Yeah. In saying that, I really, really enjoyed this.
I just love
haven't finished it,
I
but
just
it's
really
excellent.
like the fucking humour in it. It just made
Yeah.
me giggle. Anyway,
I started listening to this and I was immediately in. I don't think Pete Davidson is a good actor. I don't mind Pete Davidson in anything. Like he's a person, as far as I know.
Yeah, look,
I don't know. I can't.
Observational.
Never met the person. Cannot confirm. I don't think he's a good actor. However, the more I went through this, as soon as they started to up the laugh per minute rate, the more I fell away. I think the first 10, 15 minutes was a really great intro because they weren't going for like insert joke. And I listened to this around the same time that I started watching a new Netflix show, the first couple episodes called Inside Job, which is about the
started watching
conspiracy
that.
theory agency. And there's a lot of parallels here, and I stopped listening
really?
to both
I
of them.
hated Inside Job, but I
Yeah.
really loved Hit Job. Too many jobs.
I came to the conclusion that this is a TV show or like a web animation series rather than a podcast. I don't think this.
Really?
I don't
felt
think
like
this
it
text is served by being a podcast.
I felt like it transcended the need to be visual. I felt like it was a really good podcast version of a TV show that I didn't need the visuals.
I think
for.
you could definitely turn this into more of a radio play. But
what's the difference? What's the difference?
So, well, no, a podcast, it could definitely be a radio play, but this felt like it would be heightened by visuals.
Yeah.
Whereas a radio play you feel is
Of course, yeah.
is the exact level of like you are getting as much as you can from this text just through audio.
Yeah.
And performance. Like that's something like
You should definitely
very well
finish
done.
it.
Yeah, I will. Like
Yeah.
I have Audible still, so I will definitely get through it. I got 2.5 episodes in. So yeah, it's really well done. If you get the humor,
I just found myself laughing out loud in the car. Like I listened to it when I was actually, and this is probably why I didn't notice some of the sound issues. I was on the ferry going to Stradbroke, and that ferry is fucking loud. So I had it turned up real loud.
Yeah.
And had my noise cancelling on. But yeah.
I feel like this actually, like when I was thinking about it, I was like, I could picture this on HBO FX easy. And that was a lot.
I would watch that television show.
I mean, so would I. Because, but for me, I was like, I think I
what
started
do they
thinking
call
of the wider thing.
There's like
the
a
wider-
Bane character that I think they called him Scourge or
Scourge.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, who just talks like he's completely muffled. And I still love Hot Car. I will always love Hot Car. Aaron
Great
Gervais,
human,
it's my
though.
boyfriend.
But yeah, I think for me, I was like listening to it and I think I kind of had like podcast existential crisis because I was like,
Right.
are these sort of podcasts getting too big where it's becoming?
Okay, well maybe we need to do a theme that's like little indie podcasts.
No,
Well,
and again, it's not a bad show.
That is what I tried to do at the start. Is like whenever I recommended like a big, well-known podcast, I'd try to recommend an equally unknown, well-produced podcast. But
Please send us in your unknown, well-produced podcasts.
please do.
please do.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
will definitely listen to them because now
Stories.
there's an appetite for them. Now that we're like salivating for them after all of the big budget stuff we've done.
Yeah.
I think this kind of podcast is definitely part of the evolution, like how we had the golden age of TV, and everyone's trying to replicate that kind of TV show ongoing, and about 50% of them hit. I will have the same in, like, everyone's trying to go after that Q code
Yeah.
thing, that Q code identity at the moment. Where there will always be a place for the knife point horrors.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an either or formula here.
Yeah.
So you can definitely support both, but it is kind of incumbent on the listener looking for the smaller guy as well.
And again, it's not that it's a bad show. I think I had so much fun listening to it. I will be finishing my listening, but again, I think it just raised like the bigger question for me. Anyway.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Just have
Well,
an
that's the thing,
existential
like,
crisis.
I would equate this to the TV show Get Smart. Like, I understand that it's funny and that people like it, but I don't get it.
I feel
I don't. Yeah.
I feel like it flips back. Like I feel like they go like a kind of a increased joke per minute, and then it gets to more serious. Like it's not quite as bam bam bam. Like it's got a kind of an ebb and flow roller coaster to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Plus Natasha Lyonne's character is awesome.
But yeah, anyway, enough about podcast existentialism. Let's have a chat about my recommendation, which was the New York Times Rabbit Hole, which is a podcast, limited series podcast, about how the internet changes people, specifically on particular platforms.
Yeah. Let's get actually existential.
Yeah, this is.
This didn't cause me to rock back and forth and want to send it to my brother, but know that he would bite my head off if I ever sent it to him and say, "You're the problem."
What'd you think?
I love my brother. It's true, but he does love Joe Rogan. So
Right.
I honestly had to go through my notes because I could have sworn that we'd reviewed this before because of how long it sat in Top Pod's New and Noteworthy. Like it has been in my periphery for so long that I was dead convinced that we'd reviewed it before until I started
So was
listening.
I.
Just because the cover art had just been burned into, it's like on a television screen, it like burned its imprint into the corner of my brain. This is terrifying and excellent. The way in the first couple of episodes that they go back through somebody's entire YouTube history to find out the trajectory of their thought pattern change is insane and scary. And honestly, it made me feel really sad and uncomfortable. But it also then just made me think of all of the people in my lives who are now like, there's so many videos about it. How can it not be true? And it just made me want to cry.
Hell yeah.
The people who need to listen to these shows won't. So I'll just cry about it in a corner. It's very good, but I'm going to cry now.
Some of them will. Some of them will.
Well,
Because they're linking to things that they are passionate about.
Look,
That
if
is
enough
true,
people who are sane make reference to these assholes in their content, it will eventually, through the web, get served to the right people.
Yeah, and also it's about...
Because it was so tenuous. Like the link just blew my mind. Like you'd be listening to something that was reasonable, and then someone on the Reasonable podcast would have a guest, and then it would serve you something from that guest who was maybe not so reasonable, and then it would serve you someone from the guest that they were on the pod. Like the web just of far extremism just started off so small.
Yeah. I think for me, everything that you said is 100% true, and I 100% agree. For me, this podcast, To Get Existential, is a very interesting window into what will be the future when, more so than it is now, when everyone's lives are traceable and trackable back to their childhood, when we're all cataloging ourselves online and people can go back and see exactly where you were, what you were doing, who you were doing it with, what you were thinking at the time. That is I think this podcast is the first step along that road, where I can imagine running for politics in 20 years is going to be, well, we found on YouTube, or we found on Pornhub, or we found on WikiFeet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That being said, I think this podcast does it in a very responsible way, and does it to try to illustrate that point. However, it is doing so by doing it.
Yeah.
Which you have to illustrate that it can be done. But
I didn't even
Yeah.
think about that.
yeah, I think that's
I am broken.
because I'm sure that these people you didn't even speak on the phone to all of these people. You just find the digital trail, and that's how it happens.
And it's interesting because you look at the landscape now and it's like they gamify those experiences. So when you check in somewhere, it's gamifying it. Like you're basically enticing people to do that. And I remember reading things, and this is, again, kind of separate, but I guess running parallel to it. Companies were hiring psychologists to come on board full time to look at the behaviors of people so they could tweak algorithms to push trajectories or push specific content or the highest paying bidder and all that sort of stuff, which I thought was fascinating, but also, oh my God, that's fucked. But this is, again, yeah.
It's only mildly horrifying if you think about it.
Yep. I do think for me, looking at this show, it really is kind of not so much a relic, but it is very much of its time rather than exploring. Like I think I said when I recommended it, it doesn't explore other subcultures of the internet. It is these specific subcultures that were prominent or that are, I guess, still prominent at the time. So QAnon, YouTube, other social media as well, but those very quite specifically. And I feel like this show does lend itself to exploring that, but it's quite clear goal here is to analyze why these particular groups of subsects of people are the way they are.
Yeah.
Again, scary show. I really loved it, but yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it.
I liked it.
I'm very depressed now.
It isn't a make angry show, but it's a make scared.
It's a make scared show.
Yeah.
And that
I'm just
fucking
sitting here
podcast-
rocking back and forth now.
That podcast art too,
Yeah.
like is
Yeah.
like the Big Brother eye kind of, like
Yeah.
it's good shit. But yeah, anyway. Well, I'm glad that you
Burned into
guys.
my
People
brain.
should definitely listen to it. Like this is a recommend from me. I know that I've kind of.
I feel like there's a lot of people I know who would listen to it and be like, "This is just what mainstream media wants you to think. It's done by the failing New York Times."
Yeah,
New
the
York
failing New York Times, just like that super successful former president
Yeah.
says.
Oh yeah, I know him well. Cool, great. Oh, how good is that? I can't wait for the niche podcast. Chestnut chat. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Anyway, that'll do us for this week. As always, you can get us on that'snotcanon.com/castology. If you have a niche podcast,
Please.
about
Yep.
water.
We can have
we
another
already did
niche
water,
off.
didn't we?
If you do have the podcast for dust or the podcast for lint that I was looking for, let me know.
Yeah, or start it and then get a few episodes in,
Yeah.
send it in.
I would listen to dust. Anyone? No?
How does dust sound? Anyway, I don't know why I sound like a cat, but whatever.
Not sure where this ending went.
Doesn't
but
matter.
it definitely got away from
It
us.
doesn't. It doesn't matter. But yeah, that's notcanon.com/castology. There's a form on there. Zane will listen to all of it and then hopefully send those podcasts my
I
way,
will.
or Liz's way, or even Zane's way as well, which is
It's true. I get first pick because I listen.
it's very true.
It's true.
It's very true. And you can get us on all socials as well if you just search Castology or Castology podcasts. We are around, and it's
Yep.
great. Now, before we go, I forgot that we need to back announce. So, Liz, your niche off podcast recommendation was
The Erasable podcast. It's about pencils. 172 episodes about pencils.
yeah, baby, Zane.
Chestnut Chat. It's about conkers competitions in regional UK.
But it's made up and fake.
Well, it's a comedy podcast, yes.
Are they all comedy? And my recommendation was whatever happened to pizza at McDonald's.
Whatever happened to pizza at McDonald's?
Whatever happened to all you can eat at Pizza Hut? I want to know that. Someone do a podcast on that.
Yeah.
That shit was great.
Oh, it was. God, there's only one in
Those are the
Queensland now,
days.
isn't there? Anyway,
I thought it closed.
did it?
I don't know.
Oh, all right. We'll do an investigation. It's fun. Anyway, that'll do us for this week. I've been one of your hosts, Nick Bleeker. Across me has been.
Zane C. Weber.
To my left has been.
Elizabeth H. Best.
Keep enjoying your podcast, people.